Hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Enneagram subtypes. And particularly in this video, we're going to look at the self-preservation subtypes. And we're going to look at just one aspect of them, and that's the key word that goes with each of these subtypes. So if you know anything about subtypes, you know there's three different subtypes for every type. So there's a self-preservation one, for example. There's a social one, and then there is what's called the sexual one or the one-on-one one. So there's three different subtypes for every type, and I'm going to make a series of videos. The first one on self-preservation, and then the second one on socials, and then the third video on sexual subtypes. And I'm just looking at the key word that goes with each type. I'm not going to get into big, deep explanations of all the types, all the subtypes. I have other videos that are on subtypes then in my history. You can go back and look at those. But today, just the key words. And if you're interested in this kind of thing, you can go to my website in the description below. Just go to tomlahue.com. Just click down on that description. And on the store tab, there is a free PDF download of all this information for all three subtypes for every type. Okay, so it's just like maybe a 13-page PDF download, so you can have all of my notes and look at them and use them for yourself and for your own benefit. So let's look at the self-preservation subtypes. Now, that term self-preservation, sometimes these terms don't always work out so well. Sometimes it confuses people, but basically the self-preservation term means these people tend, and by the way, I'm going to make chapter breaks so that you can kind of just jump ahead if you want to, if you're just interested in a couple of these. But self-preservation instincts refer to survival needs like food, water, shelter, clothing, money, resources. This person that has a self-preservation subtype tends to, it's not always the case, but tends to focus on those basic self-preservation needs first, and then the social needs of their group, and then the sexual one-on-one relationships with people. That's kind of the idea. It doesn't always make sense sometimes, I get it, but that's the basic idea, like money, resources, and personal well-being. Now, in this video, I'm going to be looking at my notes, the very same notes that are available to you in a free download, and I'm just going to read through these. This is an informal video, friends talking about the Enneagram. Okay, so the type 1, the reformer, the key word is anxiety. Now, this is self-preservation only. Another video is coming for social, and then another video for sexual subtypes. So we're just looking at the social, the self-preservation. I wish I could think and talk at the same time. So the first one is type 1, the reformer. The key word is anxiety. So this is the one that looks a little bit like a 6 sometimes. If somebody tells me, I don't know if I'm a 1 or a 6, well, I kind of know they're probably the social 6 that looks a little bit like a 1, or the self-preservation 1 that looks a little bit like a 6. So this is the anxious one that's trying to get things right. Self-preservation type 1s are driven by a deep sense of responsibility to create order and security in their world. They're trying to get things right, The key word here is anxiety. These ones are hyper aware of potential threats, of what could go wrong, imperfections in the environment, and feel a great sense of responsibility in ensuring that things run smoothly. And when it doesn't, which it of course won't always, they'll become very anxious. They might micromanage their surroundings, trying to fix things before they go wrong, and can be very hard on themselves when they don't meet their own high standards. Anxiety drives them to always prepare and stay vigilant, and sometimes at the cost of their own peace. And so you can see it sounds a little bit like type 6, the anxious 6. So that's type 1, self-preservation, keyword anxiety. Self-preservation type 2, the giver, the helper. The key word here is privilege or me first. And this is, by the way, the counter type. So for type 2s, the self-preservation type is the counter to. And this gets kind of strange when you think about counter types for 2s and 1s, sometimes counter types makes a lot of sense, like 7s, 8s, limiting themselves, or 9s limiting their sloth. But it gets kind of strange sometimes when you're talking about, okay, you're a helper, but you go against that. You want to be a good person, but you go against that, the reformer, the sexual one. So the key word for type 2 self-preservation is privilege, or a position of privilege, or put me first, or I want to be first. And to some degree, I think all twos are a little bit like this in that they want to feel like they're the priority in somebody's life. After all, remember the sin is pride, right? I want to feel like I'm the priority. So these counter type twos, they want to help and they want to connect, and probably it's a lot more about connecting and having these close relationships with people. Look how fun I am. Look how exciting I am. Don't you want me in your life? Don't you want to put me first? And I always say this is a 2 that looks a little bit like a 7 sometimes because they're so fun. They're so great to be around. Don't you want more of me in your life? These 2 still want to help and connect with others, but they focus more on ensuring that they are taken care of, that their needs are met first. So it's less about pure selflessness than the other 2s. The other 2s would hate to ever be thought of as selfish. That's probably like the anathema, the worst thing they can imagine. So it's more about giving in ways that can benefit themselves. So this is also called the cute 2, aren't I cute? Don't you want to take care of me? Okay. All right. So they tend to look for ways to secure resources and comfort for themselves while maintaining their relationships. So they're getting tied in and connected as a way of protecting themselves and meeting their own needs. Okay. So I don't want to say trophy wife, but okay. They may appear more independent than other 2s, but are still highly relational, and they just don't lose themselves in others' needs as easily as maybe the other 2s. And they're mindful of how helping others can contribute to their own security. So it's maybe a little more transactional or reciprocal, their help and their connections. Okay. Counter 2s. Now let's look at type 3s, the achiever, and the self-preservation 3, by the way, is also the counter 3. So this is the 3 that goes against the vanity a little bit, sometimes called the vanity of having no vanity. And I say that these 3s often look a little bit like type 1s. They have a little bit more desire to come across, at least, as having integrity, doing the right thing, and they don't want to be seen as somebody that needs a lot of admiration or needs everybody's approval. But after all, they're still 3s, so they need a lot of admiration and approval. Self-preservation 3s are all about security. The key word is security, and you can think like securing their position. While all 3s are focused on success and achievement, the self-preservation 3 is especially concerned with how their accomplishments can provide them with long-term stability and safety. So, working up to get that position that will provide for their needs and provide for the needs of their family. They seek security through status, financial success, and recognition, often building a safety net with their achievements. It's less about the spotlight or being seen as the politician or the movie star. Those are the other 3s. It's less about the spotlight and more about the practical benefits that success can bring, like financial security, a stable home, a strong reputation. For these 3s, security is a way to protect themselves from failure, which is the fear of the 3s, or you might say like instability, protecting themselves from instability. So the key word there is security for the counter self-preservation 3. All right, let's look at the self-preservation 4, which also is the counter 4. 4 is the individualist, the romantic, the dramatist, the healer. This is the counter 4 that goes against some of their too muchness in order to try to relate better to other people. Sometimes I call them the sunny 4, or the 4 that sometimes looks a little bit like a 7. They're often INFPs, and 7s a lot of times like me are ENFPs, and so they're already on Myers-Briggs. There's a lot of similarities of individuality and authenticity. But this key word for the self-preservation 4 is called dauntless or reckless. And I also remember like the word endurance being an important part of this, the makeup of this self-preservation counter type 4. Dauntless and reckless. Well, what does that mean? Okay. Now remember, this is the counter type, so they tend to push down a little bit on their fourness in order to be able to relate better to people. They kind of got a message early on that your stuff is too much. People don't want to deal with all that. So in order to get along with people, you have to be a little bit less version of yourself. And so they're able to play that game a little bit better, I think, than other 4s of being what people want them to be in order to not be too much for people, but they're still 4s underneath, you know. Okay, so self-preservation type 4s have a surprising keyword, dauntless or reckless. These 4s are often more tough and gritty. Well, that sounds good. You're tough and gritty. I like that. Tough and gritty than some of the other 4s. Or think like the social 4s. They're the ones that, you know, they're the sad 4s that are more obviously 4s. And then sexual 4s, the angry 4s. So this is the more upbeat, positive 4. Tough and gritty, showing a kind of fearlessness in the face of challenges. I have a lot of 4 friends that I meet with coaching appointments, and I can hear their swear words right now in my head, which isn't probably a good thing. But, you know, fearless and facing challenges, you beep, 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 beep. They might adopt a survivor mentality. How about that? A lot of you guys, I bet, would see yourselves as survivors of all kinds of tragedies and problems and misunderstandings and trauma in your life that no doubt, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying you probably have that title on yourself as a survivor. Willing to take risks or dive into uncomfortable situations to prove your resilience to yourself and to others. Resilience. What a great word. There's an edge of recklessness here. They may push the boundaries because, you know, the rules don't really apply to me. I'm a 4. I'm not like other people. 4s and 8s kind of agree on that the rules don't really apply to me. They may push the boundaries and take extreme actions to separate themselves from others. How about that? Do you do that? Separating yourselves from others to feel more authentic. Their desire for self-preservation pushes them to be bold and sometimes acting before fully thinking things through. Good stuff. Okay, let's move on to type 5s, the investigator. And the key word here for this self-preservation 5 is the word fortress. Fortress. And I think this 5 sometimes could look a little bit like an 8, a little more naturally like an 8. The self-preservation 5s, the keyword is fortress, or sometimes I think of them as like the boundary 5s or the castle 5s, more focused on boundaries and space and people staying out and, you know, keeping things at a distance. Remember, this is a fear type, right? And so one of the ways to protect yourself from scary things is to create boundaries and a fortress to live in. So these 5s focus intensely on creating a safe, fear type, controlled environment where they can protect their energy and resources. They are often seen as reclusive. Okay, so think the old guy out in the cabin, the old hermit, you know, out in the cabin, the old mountain man. That's a good metaphor for this 5, the mountain man. Reclusive and detached, carefully managing their time and space to avoid being overwhelmed or bothered by the rest of us. They might hoard their knowledge, hoard their money, or personal space to feel secure and can be very territorial, maybe ready to push you out like a little bit like an 8. Idea of a fortress highlights their desire to retreat into their own world, only letting in people or things that won't drain their energy. So again, more boundary oriented, less maybe information oriented, or, you know, like the sexual type, other oriented, infatuated with that beautiful person. They got pictures all over their room, right? So this is the self-preservation 5, the fortress 5, the castle 5, as I usually call them. All right, type 6, the loyalist, the skeptic. There's a lot of names for 6s, but the key word here for self-preservation 6 is warmth. Warmth. Or I like to call this one the friendly 6. This is a 6 that looks a little bit like a 2 sometimes because they're friendly and they're warm and they're engaging. But unlike a 2 who's, you know, dealing with worth and value needs. This 6 is trying to build a team because you feel safe on a team. You feel protected when you're on a team of people who are your supporters, your loyal supporters, right? So they're warm and friendly. These 6s seek security through relationships and environments that provide them with a sense of warmth, comfort, and trust. They are often drawn to close-knit communities, stable routines, and loyal relationships. They want to feel safe and nurtured by their surroundings or in their surroundings, and they are often the ones creating that warmth for others as well. So this is the friendly 6. Hey, how are you doing? I love your shoes. You're so pretty. I love your makeup. See, I'm not an enemy. It's like friendly and saying, look, I'm not armed. I'm not an enemy. I'm playing a friend card. So you're going to play a friend card back to me, right? You're not going to be my enemy. Look how friendly I'm being to you. And so outgoing, warm, friendly, and a little bit like showing my hand. See, no weapon, no weapon. So you don't need a weapon against me. This subtype tends to be more grounded and practical, focusing on creating a stable, cozy life. Isn't that nice? Cozy life where they can feel safe from their external threats. And also think like be a part of a big network of people that will insulate you and protect you and be there for you in your times of doubt or worry or when you feel overwhelmed. All right, on to the self-preservation 7. The enthusiast, the adventurer, the explorer, and the key word here is family. Now, sometimes you can think of like ages, and I tend to think of the self-preservation 7 as kind of the teenager 7, a little more self-referencing than the other 7s, a little more selfish than the other 7s. Sometimes this 7 is called the Black Book 7 because they got a black book filled with all the names of people they can call to help them get what they want in life. But the key word here for the self-preservation 7 is family. Self-preservation 7s are driven by the need for a family. For them, security comes through creating a tight circle, black book, of trusted people who can support them emotionally and materially. I want people around me who can help me get what I want and help me do the things I want to do that will go with me to all the places I want to go. So they focus on building a nest for themselves where they can feel comfortable and safe while enjoying life's pleasures. These 7s are less scattered than the other subtypes and more focused on creating lasting security and comfort for themselves, so self-referencing. And you might need to remind this 7, other people have feelings, right? Other people, they have souls and feelings, and you can't just use people to get what you want. So comfort for themselves and sometimes for their loved ones. They balance their need for fun and variety with a strong desire for stability and support from their inner circle. So connected to their little group and, getting that group to help get them to what they want in life. So kind of like the teenager 7. Social 7s, like me, more like the adult 7, and then childlike 7s, the sexual 7s. Okay, type 8, the challenger, the boss, the maverick, the independent. Keyword here for self-preservation 8s is survival. Survival. And I tend to think of these 8s as looking a little bit like 5s. Interesting that the self-preservation 5 looks a little like an 8. Self-preservation 8 looks a little bit like a 5. By the way, I forgot to mention anyway, move on. Self-preservation 8's the challenger, survival. For self-preservation type 8's, the keyword is survival. These 8s are hyper-aware of their need to protect themselves, gathering all the resources they might need so that they can live independently. It sounds a little bit like a 5. So protecting themselves and their loved ones from any threats, real or imagined, they focused on securing resources. So this 8 wants to get rich, but not because they necessarily want to be a boss, but because they want to not be dependent on anybody else. They want to be self-reliant and independent, right? So this subtype is focused on securing resources, securing power, and independence to ensure their survival. So this is the 8, that has a big garden and lots of canning, and they're collecting resources. They might look a little bit like a 5. They might, in sort of their hoarding of things. This subtype is fiercely protective and often takes charge in situations to ensure that things are done in a way that keeps them and their group safe. They can be highly self-reliant, and they can see vulnerability as a threat to their survival, which makes them seem tough and unyielding. All right, self-preservation 8s. Okay, last one, self-preservation 9, the comfort-seeking 9, the 9 that sometimes looks a little bit like a 7, because they will kind of, go along with stuff for their immediate needs right now, and they're more focused on the hedonistic. You might look at it like that, like the hedonism of a 7. They kind of share a little bit of that, because the key word for this 9 is the word appetite. Appetite, like they want to satisfy their appetite for comfort and for the simple pleasures of life. This 9 loses themselves to the simple pleasures or comforts of this life. This doesn't refer to just food, although it can, not like just appetite, like I want to eat all the time, but more about seeking comfort and satisfaction in life. Doesn't that sound a little bit like a 7? Satisfaction, looking for satisfaction in life. Whether that is food or rest or avoiding stress or just the simple things that they like, the comfortable shoes, the comfortable jeans. These 9s want to preserve their peace by indulging in activities, in activities that bring them comfort and relaxation. So they may retreat into routines that are familiar and soothing, avoiding anything that feels like it will disrupt their inner harmony. So more about their inner peace than maybe some of the other 7s or other 9s. This subtype can sometimes struggle with inertia, getting started. Gravity is the enemy. And they focus more on maintaining their own comfort zone rather than addressing challenges head on. So they might look a little more selfish because they might appear like you're just watching out for yourself here. You're just protecting yourself by not interacting with certain people or by the way you interact to get your own needs met. Okay, so that is a list of the keywords for the self-preservation subtype for all the types. Join me in my next video for the keywords of the social subtypes, and then finally I'll do a third video on the sexual subtypes. Great information. I hope it's encouraging to you and helps you understand more about yourself and about the people that you love, people in your life. If you want to reach out for coaching, I'm always here for you. I'd love to work with you if you're having trouble in life or marriage and getting started in life or whatever. Reach out to me. Check out all my courses on demand. Got a lot of great information to help you, to come alongside of you, to live the best life possible. Thank you guys. As always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.